This sucks.
Welcome, everyone, to Drafting with Drafts, a show for those who love drinking, for those who love drafting random stuff, and for those of us that love both. This is your show for sure. This is episode 4, and before I get into what it is we are actually drafting today, I'm going to introduce my panel. We have a familiar face and then a couple new faces here. I'm excited for all three of them to be here. So first, we're going to go with the man on my right. This is his second straight episode. Jason DeLuca, thank you for being here.
Hi. You're welcome.
To the man sitting to my left. We've been trying to make this episode work for some time now. This is the guy I most certainly wanted to be a part of this episode. A person I consider, at least I do now since we're sitting next to each other, I consider a friend, but someone who is a genuinely good human and does so much good for this city of Buffalo. Reid, thank you for being here.
Wow, yeah, thank you for having me. That is quite the intro. I will try to live up to it.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Don't tank my show. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm assuming anyone who lives in the Buffalo, Pittsburgh, or Chicago area? Am I right with those three cities?
Yeah.
All right.
You can say it with authority.
Know who this man is and the good he does. But, Del, tell us a little bit about 26 Shirts and the mission behind it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm glad we could finally do this. I was really wanted to be part of that Marvel one, but football's good too, so that's awesome. So
the next Marvel one you'll be a part of.
Oh, I'm so in. All right. So, 26 Shirts. What we do is we sell a different limited edition Buffalo, Chicago, Pittsburgh design, each within their own branches of the website. And we do it every 2 weeks. And for every shirt we sell, we donate up to $8 to a local family or charity. And we just passed $700,000 that we managed to raise and donate as of last week.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a testament more to the people that believe in what we do than actually what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's I always joke it beats working for a living.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. $700,000. That's incredible. Closing in on $1 million.
Yeah, closing in. Yeah, it's insane. This was going to be like a 1-year community service project, and it was just accepted like so well, by the community that we just figured we would just keep rolling with it, and now here we are,
And Del's definitely rocking 2 designs right now.
Yes, I am. Yeah, for sure. So, this is I figured it's a Geekiverse podcast, so I should wear something a little spacey or whatever. So, this one, and then
something super nerdy.
Yeah. Just a little nerdy, not too nerdy, and then we have the opportunity to work with Buffalo Bills Deon Dawkins.
The Snowman.
The Snowman. So I'm rocking his personal brand tonight as well, too.
Awesome. So, cool. Del, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to say that I got a much longer introduction than your cousin did just now. So, I mean...
He did mine off air. You guys heard it. You guys heard how impressive I am.
That actually was pretty good.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. Now, we always have a member of the Community Beer Works family here with us. Normally, it's Brendan. He is not here with us today. Mm-hmm. It's probably because he's a Browns fan.
We'll go.
But anyone from Cleveland, I'm sorry. I didn't truly mean that. But
I meant it for you.
Yeah.
I'll mean it.
We do have his first time being on the show, and we're super stoked to have him here, Dave Giczkowski. Hey, thanks for being here, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me. When Brendan asked me if there was an opportunity for me to come by, and I was told that it was going to be about drafting and about football, I was in with drafting. Football just made it work. So yeah, this sounds great, and it's been a pleasure to work with you guys just for the last 5 minutes. Let's just do this again.
You're the perfect man for this
Thank you.
job today. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And Dave kind of let it out of the bag right there, football related. We are drafting an all-time NFL team. So we are drafting fantasy football style. Anyone who has ever played in the NFL is available to pick. Once they are gone, they are gone. The only thing that's needs a little clarification is when we draft defense, you are picking a team and a specific year for that defense. 10 spots. We're doing 2 QBs, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, a defense, and a flex, which can be wide receiver, running back, tight end. I'll allow kicker if anyone wants to go that route. But we can get this started. And Jason, you got the first pick. This is my first time not having to draft number 1. I appreciate you taking that from me.
Oh, I couldn't feel worse about it. So
You set the tone. You're setting the tone right now.
So I kind of prepared my draft in with more of a fantasy perspective, as in there are probably better all-time players to be picked, but seeing as I haven't seen pretty much 75% of the NFL 100 players like that are on that list ever play the game,
That's fair.
I just am choosing to stay away from a lot of them.
Okay.
And this is probably going to be a little controversial. With my number 1 pick, I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh,
Wow. Future bet. You didn't want to go
Wow.
with Joe Burrow there. Because I'm not going to lie, I was considering after last night's display.
The quarterback they have at Kenmore West is pretty good. I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, if we're gonna-
Oh, yeah. When we redo this draft in a couple years, we'll figure it out. But I
mean, in terms of drafting young players, it's about as safe as you can get.
right. So here's my logic.
He did just hang over 50 on the Texans
I
this
didn't
weekend.
I
so-
didn't want to go with a quarterback I've never seen play. I didn't want to go with surely Manning and Brady are going to be picked. I didn't want to pick one of them over the other because I definitely like one of them more than the other, fully recognizing that the other one is probably better. So I just thought, you know what? If I want a team that can just score points and beat you, this guy's proven to be pretty good at it. And I don't think he's going to slow down.
I mean, he's showing no signs of it at the moment. Dude is incredible and is essentially a prototype for the new type of quarterback in this league. Chiefs fans have one hell of a guy to root for, that's for sure.
Right.
So
If you want to pick Johnny Unitas, go ahead, but I'm going to pick Patrick Mahomes to beat Johnny Unitas every time they play. So that's my logic.
first pick.
I didn't want to do it.
Wow.
I like it though. That's a twist, like right out of the gate.
It
Yeah.
is.
You know,
Mhm.
that's
You set the tone. You set the tone early.
You did set the tone, and
Yep.
you did throw me off with that pick.
Yep.
It does not affect my pick because as long as no one took this dude, he was going to be my number 1. I'm going with Joe Montana. And here's the thing. I've been a diehard Bills fan forever, but my favorite player ever has always been Joe Montana. And I felt like I could not live with myself if he ended up on somebody else's team. So, number 1 pick.
I respect that. I mean, Joe Montana, like late '80s, early '90s, there was no one better. He was Mr. Clutch. The dude,
Yep.
they used to call him Joe Cool, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, there's something to be said there. He was on my short list. So I'm gonna take it a little bit of a different direction, and I know a lot of people are gonna look at this as a homer pick, but I don't care. I'm going with Thurman Thomas.
Great pick.
And I mean, the guy was a threat out of the backfield. You know, as a receiving option for the K-Gun offense. I mean, he was one of the best runners I've ever seen play. In fact, not until, you know, because I mean, I watch all the games, not all the games, a lot of NFL games, but I watch every Bills game, right? And so not since, let me rephrase that. Having seen LaShawn McCoy the past couple years kind of reminded me what it was like to have Thurman Thomas on the team. He was always a threat. He was just such an engine. He should have been the MVP in Super Bowl 25, in my opinion. So it's without reservation. I just happen to live in the city of Buffalo and love the Bills, but Thurman Thomas, without question, is my guy.
Thurman is right below Montana on my list of favorite players. Had he been around coming back up, he was going to be my next pick. He's one of those guys. So many running backs nowadays are threats out of the backfield and incredible receivers. Thurman really helped start that whole movement. And people talk about dual threat type running backs, and I know LaDainian Tomlinson is always someone who's mentioned, but in my opinion, Thurman was the first one to really do it and excel with it.
Yeah, it was the quote unquote the caveat that was always with him, back in the early '90s, was that there was Sanders and there was Smith and then there was Thurman, who was the best all around back. They always put in quotes like all around. Wouldn't you want the best all around back on your team instead of having So I don't know. That always used to drive me crazy. It still drives me crazy. So I'm happy to add him to Team Dell.
Good pick. Very good pick.
It's funny. I think Thurman's a great pick, and oddly enough, I had a conversation earlier today about a different player that might come up later. Well, we'll just pencil it in right now. This isn't the player I was going to talk about, but the conversation I had earlier was basically about how would he properly use a running back, and the old traditional football model, which I despise. Throw the ball. Just throw the ball, please. By the way, we're picking Jerry Rice first because leads history in receptions, yards from scrimmage, touchdowns receiving and rushing. And when you got playmakers that talented, you got to give them the ball, and you got to give them the ball in space. And watching Thurman in the 90s, I mean, for me, I was 9, 10 years old when that started, and I took to college football because you can do more of that in that game, and it's not the standard vanilla NFL offense, and it's exciting. And oh, by the way, in the 50 years of the Bills' history since the merger, the only time we've been consistently good is when we passed the ball all the time.
Preach.
God, it's annoying to watch your bully run your offense for 20 years. But on the theme of running backs that were good receivers, and by the way, thank you for leaving me at the gate here on the back end, Marshall Faulk. We're going to go Marshall Faulk next because as I was looking stuff up, because I do that as I'm watching college football, Faulk had over 750 receptions from the running back position. It's insane. And you look at what the year McCaffrey had this year, and, how much farther can we go with this in terms of offensive development? And the Mahomes pick, when you look at quarterbacks, in terms of just overall offense and how things go, offense just keeps improving and improving and improving. And it's just figuring out ways to maximize who you have in your team. And, the greatest show on turf might have done it better than anyone else. Really might have. So, I'm gonna go with Rice and Faulk and just let you guys do what you need to do as I sit back and sip my beer.
Faulk was going to be my next pick.
Yes.
That's fair.
And I was shocked when Faulk was not Jason's number one pick because he's been one of his favorites,
I rode him to 3 straight fantasy football wins, boys.
I believe it, man. I believe it. He was great. And, if you take him, Thurman, and a couple other guys, and you just build and expand upon that to with the way offense is played now, it's fun to watch. It makes the game really fun to watch.
You got a nice start on a hell of an offense there.
There's more to come.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. But Dell's first. So.
All right.
Go ahead. Second round.
The best quarterback available right now is probably Tom Brady. I'm going to take Peyton Manning.
Yes.
Because Peyton Manning, first of all, for Tom Brady, that's not happening. But
are we?
Am I even Bills Mafia? Am I allowed to be Mr. Bills Mafia?
Are we going to all not pick Brady?
Why would you want to draft a system quarterback?
And
Heard it.
Let's be real. Fandom affects things. And our fandom is going to affect our picks here. I have Brady written down.
I don't, for what it's worth.
Well, Peyton Manning, you
Here's
hear
the
all
thing.
these stories
Yeah.
about how he would prepare for games. And he was basically like the de facto offensive coordinator, for the second half or maybe even more so of his career. Just a great football mind, laser rocket arm, as it were. And just like he's always been one of my favorite players that didn't play for the Bills, Peyton Manning. So
Same.
there's a little bit of sentimentality, but if you're going to be sentimental about a player that you want on your team, Peyton Manning's not a bad way to go.
And hilarious.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
His sense of humor is just incredible. So I'm going to give you that pick as like one of the best picks you will see based on his sense of humor and not even his football ability. So I'm coming up here, second round. This whole draft so far has thrown me. It did not necessarily go the way I thought it would so far. But I figured I would take a running back in the second round, and I'm going to stick with that. This is the best running back I think I've ever seen play, so I'm going to go with Barry Sanders.
So you're just gonna keep drafting Tecmo Super Bowl?
Yes.
Like it?
I almost took.
Oh, wait till you get to my pick.
I won't.
Can you imagine if Tecmo Super Bowl was around now and Patrick Mahomes was in that, how he would be represented?
Or McCaffrey?
I've got a
jeez.
guy if you want the new rosters.
Yeah.
That they do that. They've
Oh,
been
yeah?
uploading it.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I've
nice.
seen.
Yeah.
I've seen that. You mod it, yeah.
All right, Jay. Take us home in the second round.
All right, so to finish off the second round, I'm gonna go with probably the most talented, like physically gifted wide receiver, Randy Moss.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
that was foolish of me to think that he was actually going to last all the way back to me.
I almost took him. I
mean-
was afraid that with back-to-back picks, I was going to lose Sanders.
Clearly didn't live up to it every year, but along with Marshall Faulk, those two guys were my guys back in early 2000s. Watching him be like the greatest wide receiver season ever for the Patriots was rough, but it didn't take away from me. Like still looking at my Vikings signed picture on the wall, or in a box in the corner. But I have it either way.
How about his kid kicking ass last night?
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he's
Hey,
good
you
too.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you watching, the championship was last night. LSU, Clemson, and Randy Moss's. This is one of those things that makes me feel super old. Randy Moss's kid lighting it up in the national championship, 2 touchdowns. So that ends the second round. We're gonna take you now, real quick, to the beer focus. What's up, guys? I'm here with Dave at Community Beer Works. We're in the middle of a very heated football draft, but we thought we'd take a break and talk about beer a little bit. This is Bangy Yui. It is a New England style IPA that they make here at Community Beer Works. I'm being told this is the second recipe.
It is the second recipe. It's very similar to the first. Really, the major change is just the alcohol percentage. We went up from 7% to 8.4%. In terms of the overall flavor profile, it's still very fruit forward. You still get a little bit of bitterness in the back end, but it being a New England IPA, the idea is for it not to be overly bitter, to accentuate the fruit notes that come out of it, and a lot of the fun stuff that people don't necessarily always want in an IPA. I would like that out of an IPA, but some people just don't like bitterness.
Sure. Bitterness, one of the things that kept me away from IPAs for a long time, until I started to get into them in the last few years. Different styles of IPAs. This is a New England IPA.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between a New England IPA and, say, an American IPA?
Well, so the major difference is really the look of it. It is cloudy, it is hazy, unfiltered is a term that gets used for this because it's part of the process. But the idea is that your classical American IPA, while being around 7%, is bitterness forward, or at least a little more balanced with overall floralness or citrusiness, whereas the New England IPAs are really designed to accentuate any citrus or fruit or anything that is really not bitterness. So sometimes there's additives used, sometimes it can be something as simple as a little honey or just the right yeast strain to create that cloudiness.
A beer like this, what would it pair well with?
Well, in general, anything fruit forward because you're accentuating fruits anyway, naturally, but any good IPA is good with spicy food because a lot of times those bitterness notes will hit the same receptors on your tongue as the capsaicin does, the active agent in the hot sauce. Or really anything, because it is higher in alcohol, something that's big, with big bodied food like anything meat or something like that. So a good steak would really be really nice with this.
Sounds great, actually.
Beer and steak can't go wrong.
No, not at all. Dave, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's get back to the draft. All right, welcome back. We are starting the third round. Jason, you get another pick.
All right, so definitely going running back here, and not that this is going to be controversial, but going along with our Tecmo Bowl theme, the greatest
Don't do it.
Super Tecmo
Don't
Bowl
do it.
player
Don't take him.
of
Don't
all
take him.
time. It's happening, Mr. Bo Jackson.
That is disappointing.
Was he next?
No, I was hoping he was actually going to because he didn't have a shortened career. I really thought there was a chance
Right,
there.
right. But he's one of those players that I always all you ever hear is if he didn't get injured, he just would have been so great. And I don't know, something about that resonates with me more than Jim Thorpe, who you're okay, cool. He was great in the 1940s when all you did was run the ball. But, yep, so Bo Jackson, two-sport player, so
Yeah.
I reserve him for
He
our
was
baseball
good at
team,
both
too.
sports.
That's
too.
the thing.
Yeah.
It's
Good.
a wise choice.
Yeah, I get him for our baseball draft whenever, automatically.
Do you also get him in the animation version of that cartoon with him,
With the
Gretzky,
pants.
and
With the
Jordan from?
Wearing the
yeah.
pads.
Yeah. What's the name of that? Was it Superstars or something
All
like that?
Stars?
All Stars?
Something
yeah.
like that. Gretzky, Jordan,
I just remember being on
and
Saturday
Bo
mornings,
Jackson.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got to try and find that later. Jason, your team looks absolutely nothing like I thought it would after 3 picks.
Yeah, I'm going
But
to
it-
get roasted in the comment
It's,
section.
but it's hard to argue based on your reasoning for each pick. It's hard to argue with those facts. So
Well, I mean, thanks. I'm the one that you talk to, so I appreciate you not arguing with me about it.
all right, so I have a quarterback, I have a running back. I assume I should probably take a wide receiver. I was hoping Jason wouldn't take Moss, but he did. So this is a guy I have had on countless fantasy teams. Old Faithful. He's really never let me down. He's played 47 years now. I love the guy to death.
Frank Gore.
I'm going to go with Larry Fitzgerald.
Did you see that stat that they were talking about last week or whatever it was, or 2 weeks ago, how he has more tackles in his career than he has drops?
Yes.
Holy
Yes.
He has,
That's insane.
he has more tackles. He has 5 drops in his career and maybe 6 tackles or something like that.
That's crazy.
Speaking of baseball, he is now. After you say that, he's the Tony Gwynn of football. Tony
Yeah.
Gwynn was with 1 year. He struck out less times than he had swings and misses or something like that. It was something.
I know.
It was
I
something
just heard this
ridiculous.
stat.
Yeah. And I
I'm gonna
apologize for
Google
not pulling it.
ridiculous Tony Gwynn stats.
I'm sure.
Now
I'm sure if you go to
see what it
Reddit
is.
baseball, it's right there. But Fitz is just impressive.
Mm-hmm.
He's just been impressive and a class act the whole way through. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard not to like that guy in any way,
Right.
shape, or form.
Right. And with Rice being gone and then Moss being gone,
Mm-hmm.
there are other options, obviously. But this is a guy I've been privileged to watch his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen just day in and day out how good that dude is. Regardless of quarterback, regardless of what the team looks like, the offense, that dude is just he's automatic. So
He's that player for the last 3-4 years in fantasy football who are no, this is going to be the year he's not good anymore, so I don't want to take him.
Yep.
And then every year he still puts up numbers, and you're like, what the heck?
right,
Yeah.
I don't get
Yeah.
it.
right.
Yeah.
And I did that this year. And I drafted him, and he still put up stats.
And as it was mentioned, he's a classy guy too. He's played some seasons with some very subpar
Yeah,
quarterbacks,
sure.
and you've never heard a peep out of him. I want to be traded or
Right.
going to the media and complaining. Like, just a classy guy all around.
Yep. I found a pretty good Tony Gwynn stat
Oh, yeah?
here. In 1995, Gwynn struck out 15 times in
Okay.
535 at-bats.
Wow.
That's
insane.
That's crazy.
insane.
That's crazy.
When you have guys who strike out between 150 and 200 times in a year,
Easily.
15 times.
Not to derail us to baseball because I will sit there all day.
Absolutely.
But like, for the way the guys swing and miss now with launch angles, I mean, just to hear that, and he still never really got close to 400. He 1 or 2 years we got close, and how is anyone nowadays going to get to that number? But
Right.
that's yeah, we'll leave that for spring.
Now you know what my comeback episode very well may be. We might go the baseball route.
I'll be
But-
available.
All right. But right now we're still talking football.
Right.
Del, 3rd round pick.
All right, so I've got a quarterback and I've got a running back. It's time for a wide receiver, and I'm going to go with Calvin Johnson. It's kind of
Megatron.
it's kind of impossible not to go with him. I think just based on like who's been taken and just like he left the game just because he was sick of playing for the Detroit Lions, not because the game had passed him by. I mean the guy was just I was going to say a machine, but I guess that's why they call him Megatron, right?
Yeah.
But just something else and just a really special talent that I think we were all lucky to watch, and so it's no brainer for me.
Yeah. Great pick.
See, we're getting some of these picks are ones that I'm like, I think I can get away with picking some of these people later because, maybe these people will be picking older people.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think we all kind of have a similar mindset in this.
We're all hashtag team recency bias.
Yeah.
Well, let's just keep that going then, and we'll see what I get to do later. So I've got, I'm just going to keep trying to build the greatest show on turf here. I've got a wide receiver. I've got a running back that's basically another wide receiver. So let's add another running back that is also kind of a wide receiver, but even more of a running back. LT, baby.
Yeah.
LaDainian Tomlinson. We have to hear. I mean, he's had some of the best individual fantasy seasons of all time.
Oh, for sure.
And the next guy I'm going to pick, I can say this safely for both of them. I've never had either of them on a fantasy team, even though I still found a way to win some years. And I don't know how I did it, but I mean, watching LT and just watching him live in person, just going to a few Bills games, and be able to see him, the speed and power he ran with, and just the fluidness of what he was is just incredible.
Yeah.
Plus, he caught the ball in the backfield and started that train. And his quarterback early on was a guy named Drew Brees.
I was wondering how long it would take for Breeze to drop.
Well, I mean, I've got the guy in Rice with the most receptions, yards from scrimmage, and touchdowns of all time. I might as well get the quarterback with the most passing yards and most touchdowns of all time as well. So
That's it's a great pick. Great pick. Breeze is another guy who's really hard to dislike.
Really, I mean, he really is. Mm-hmm. And I also support it not just being a stereotypical, prototypical quarterback. A guy that's a little bit shorter. You can do a lot of things on offense with a guy that's not necessarily 6'3" and bigger. And man, that guy can still throw the ball. He can still throw the ball, and somehow, some way, the Saints just keep finding ways to lose playoff games. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. And
thanks, refs.
Yeah, I sit here as a Bills fan saying that, so I'm gonna just say that I'm part of the neighborhood here.
Sure.
But yeah, man, that guy, I consider myself lucky to be alive to watch him play.
Yeah, and the NFL just did this huge NFL 100th year, an all-time team. I started thinking about this draft before that, so please don't think I'm copying what the NFL is doing. But Breeze was on the short list for their top 10 quarterbacks. He did not make their final 10. I find that to be insane. Just based on the numbers that he has put up in this league consistently.
It's crazy when you think about it, and it's different coaches, different teams. Like I said the thing about Brady earlier because, again, Bills fan. But, I mean, I'll take the small guy from Purdue over the guy that, could barely play at Michigan and then, couldn't beat out a guy that couldn't play for the Yankees. So his name's Drew Henson, and I love you, Drew.
Shade.
Yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. Keep
Wow.
cheating.
Wow.
Keep cheating.
I'm so excited to take Brady as with my 10th pick.
Yeah.
knowing that he's not going to be taken anywhere near that. So, Xavier, I think you might have the team to beat right now.
It's still early, but I
It's
appreciate
still early,
that.
but that's an impressive 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. But Del, your fourth pick.
As much shade as we've been throwing at the Patriots, and how I even chose not to draft the quarterback.
I think I know where this is
I
going.
got to go with Rob Gronkowski.
Yeah.
I mean, just probably the best tight end to ever play the game, at least in terms of passing and receiving and whatever. But just a freak talent.
Yep.
And there's a reason why the Patriots offense, I think, took a huge step backwards this year.
Yeah,
they were missing, basically Tom Brady's favorite weapon.
Yep.
And so for me, it's a no-brainer now to fill my tight end spot with the best to ever play.
And while I'm not sure the type of sense of humor Thurman has or Megatron has, you have the funniest team so far because Gronk is freaking hilarious too.
There's probably some subconscious thing going on, and I appreciate that when
For sure. And Gronk was one that he's a Western New York guy, just like the four of us are.
Mm-hmm.
That could also factor into us looking at him in a more favorable light.
Well, I'll be clear. I am not a Gronkowski fan. I don't care where he grew up. I'm not a fan,
Sure.
but I respect his talent.
Yeah.
So.
But if you read
Yeah.
those Gronkowski bios on that boat website that they, the Gronk cruise thing,
Yeah.
they're pretty hilarious.
He
All the brothers, the dad, it's
he never
weird.
ceases to put a smile on my face. Like on New Year's Eve, he spiked a Lego version of Steve Harvey's head because he was hammered out of his mind. And I was just like, but that's Gronk.
Did you
Like,
see him dancing with
you-
the Laker girls?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Great pick. Great pick.
He's enjoying life.
True Buffalonian.
Yeah, right. So, a lot of really good players have been taken off the board already. I'm going to go with. All right, so listen, this is not a player I ever saw play, and part of me feels bad about picking this guy because I never witnessed his greatness in person. But then again, he is who he is, and you don't feel bad about taking a guy like this. So I'm going to take Walter Payton with the number 4 pick.
I saw him play. He was really good. So I mean,
I mean, the guy's number 2 in rushing yards all time. You can't really say no to that.
Right.
It's tough to.
Right. And without, and this is a little Cowboy shade, but without arguably the greatest offensive line that's ever been assembled, does Emmett take that title? Now, that's not to say Emmitt Smith isn't one of the greatest running backs who's ever lived, but I always like to think, well, what would Thurman Thomas have done behind that offensive line? What would Barry Sanders
Thurman
have
had a
done?
pretty good offensive line.
Oh, he did,
For
absolutely.
what it's worth,
Well,
but-
maybe he's more so Barry Sanders, who the Lions always sucked. They always sucked, yet Sanders just made people look ridiculous. Now, if he had a line like the Cowboys had during the championship run, he sets records that no one touches.
Yeah. Well, Sanders was always fun to watch because his runs would go 2 yards, 3 yards, -1 yard, 62 yards. It was crazy.
And he would, for a 2-yard gain, he'd run 25
Oh,
yards.
yeah, no doubt.
Because he'd go side to side, back, forward.
Yep.
That poor guy, those Lions teams were...
They
were
did
tough.
make the
They were-
NFC Championship one year.
Say there was that
They did.
one year we always talk about what would have happened to the Bills play the Niners, but there was that one year where it was 13-3 or 14-2 Lions go to play the Redskins and just get smacked in Washington. Man, that would have been a really fun. That was Minnesota Super Bowl. That would have been really fun.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, Steve Tasker once said that playing against that Washington team was like playing against a buzzsaw. He says it doesn't matter who was playing that team that day; they were going to get killed. Just that team, such a weird flash of the pan that season
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Just
it really was.
He killed everybody.
Mark Rippon.
Mark Rip.
Yep.
Jesus. Do you have to bleep that Jesus, Adam? My apologies. That was the first one. Jason. Ending the 4th round, bringing us into the 5th.
But I'll tell you guys, my list is dwindling quick because I didn't put a lot of old guys on here, and you guys are not picking old guys. So, I'm going to be Googling pretty soon over here. But I think with my next pick, I'm going to go with another wide receiver, dependable Marvin Harrison.
Good pick.
Mm-hmm.
not the flashiest wide receiver, but I mean, like him and Manning were just like, I mean, they were never out of sync. The two of them were crazy together. So I figured I got my my playmaking wide receiver, but now I got my just dependable possession receiver as well.
Good pick. Now, what are you doing with number 5? Our last round to be witnessed. Yeah. You can hear us after that, but you can't see our faces. So this is your last round on air, Jason. What are you picking? Defense.
Not quite. So, been debating a little bit. There isn't. I almost want to go just the Tech Mobile route again and just pick like Christian Okoye because he was so fast. But I'm not gonna do that. I think I'm gonna go tight end, and I'm just gonna pick. Well, Gronkowski's probably the best athlete. I'm just gonna go with Tony Gonzalez.
He was my number 2.
I mean, what?
He was my number 2 tight end.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost like ahead of his time in terms of what a tight end could be.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder, like, well, man, if he was playing now, would he be right up there? Well, he would be right up there with those guys. We could probably say that. But there are guys now that like maybe are doing better, but I'll just go with him.
Yeah.
That's about all I can say, I guess.
Well, you figured him and Gronk are 1A and 1B when you look back at the tight ends that have played in the NFL. After them, this is no disrespect to any other tight end who's ever played, but after those two, there's a pretty good drop-off in terms of a guy where if you had to start a team around a tight end, those two are your best picks.
Yeah, I guess I would say like the tight ends that are like really great now are really just great at receiving, at being receivers. You don't often hear about their blocking prowess. Not that I'm drafting a tight end for their blocking prowess because that almost goes against everything I was saying earlier. But I think he was more of an all-around tight end.
I feel like there's probably one or two names that we'll get to because of what the tight end position is. And it's funny, as we were coming back down towards me, I had this thought of that this is kind of where the run on tight ends might happen because there's, typically in any fantasy draft, there was always one position that you have a couple really good at the top end and then everyone's just kind of in the middle. And most tight ends nowadays are in the mold of a Tony Gonzalez.
Yeah.
The first real number one passing option. I mean, there was maybe one other guy beforehand, but I won't say them because maybe I'll draft him. That he was the main focal point of that offense. And now, I mean, it's kind of with Gronk and even like, George Kittle or many of the other guys that could still be taken. I mean, those guys are number one legitimate options in their offense. Where before, up until Gonzalez, really, they were 3, 4 maybe at best behind just average wide receivers.
And now I feel like I have to take a tight end.
You might want
after that speech.
Or maybe I want you to.
I know you're playing.
So you can just wait until the last round to pick your.
I might.
We get it.
Playing mind games. Now, all the other tight ends I have written down, except for one, are no longer playing. Most of them I didn't even see play. A couple of them I did. While I think Dell needs to go with, for his flex, he needs to take Shannon Sharp for his all-comedy league team that he's got going. I mean, Jason took Mahomes, so based off of just what the guy has done over the last few years, I think he's going to go down as one of the best tight ends to ever play the game. I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. And I'm pissed about that pick, but you freaked me out with your tight end. I didn't want to do that right away, but
that's what I was debating with. Like Kelce, just, I guess, if you want to argue, like, Kelsey and Mahomes already have, like, a rapport together.
Yep.
But I just thought Gonzalez has the overall career, which, again, goes against my Bo Jackson pick. But you know what? Screw you guys. This is my pick, all right?
And I think I'm going to follow a similar pattern to Jason now because I feel like I've already been I've been outdueled so far in terms of compiling just like an epic team from a performance standpoint. So now I'm just going to be like, well, screw it. I'm going to pick guys I want to pick because I want them on my team. So Kelsey's one of those guys, likable guy, talented guy, and I think we're going to see just an incredible career out of the guy. So I'm still kind of pissed, but I'm all right with the pick. So Dell, with your second tight end.
Actually, because we're building the teams that we want to have, I'm going with T.O.
Oh, I almost took T.O.
Good pick right
I'm going
there.
with T.O.
Good pick.
Took
You know,
T.O.
I'm a lifelong, T.O. stan.
Yeah.
What I always, loved him. I always thought he got a bad rap. I think he played into that role a little bit, but Pete behind the camera is shaking his head. Regardless,
But if
T.O.'s my dude. I don't care. So
Yeah.
when I remember when he signed with the Bills, I spent I was traveling. I was in Washington D.C. at a conference, and my wife actually came down. So for like the last 2 days of the conference, we were going to go out to dinner that night and all that stuff. Just kind of make a little mini vacation out of it. And that last day, he signs with the Bills. I think it ruined the whole date aspect of that trip because I just spent the whole day going, I can't believe T.O. was with the Bills. I can't believe it. And she's like, would you stop? I called her dad, who's like one of my best friends. And we spent probably like an hour on the phone right when it was announced. And she's like, understandably, like, I'm here, and I'm like, I know, I can't believe it. He signed, and
here's the thing: your wife is going to watch this show,
and she'll remember that moment.
and see the T.O. pick, and she's going to be like, "Damn it, Dell, really?"
I love the guy. I own 2 T.O. jerseys, so I mean that's whatever. But
yeah.
I'm glad he's on Team Dell. It's where he belongs. We're happy to have you, T.O.
Good pick. Good way to wrap up your number 5 there.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, before I make my pick, I was at the Regal on Transit. As that happened, I was watching The Watchmen. A bunch of us went to go see it.
Yeah, it came out like 2 days before that.
Yeah, it was. We were in The Watchmen, and this is before iPhones. So we all had our flip phones, and we get out of the movie theater, and we all had text messages. Like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. My one friend, Sean Roche, love you, buddy. He went outside and started smacking his head up against the concrete wall because he was so disturbed by what had happened. Because his point was, why are we getting a guy that's that old? But you know what? Honestly, he was so much fun.
Yeah.
He was just a great time and a character.
The key to the city was a bit much.
A little bit.
Yeah. Looking back on that, maybe we could have done a little better. But
looking back on it that night,
it wasn't our Buffalo's finest moment. But he was cool. I liked him.
Yeah, and I feel like I always felt like part of him knew what he was getting into. It was the franchise was in such a sad state at that point.
Yeah.
You had Russ Brandon as the GM. I don't know if he was the de facto GM or the official GM at that point. You had Dick Duran as the coach. It was just a dark time to be a Bills fan. I'm not even saying that was like to be funny, but it's true.
And
like,
we've all been a part of the last 20 years.
Yeah, we were talking about
to say that this particular point was a really dark time.
For sure, yeah.
It's spot on, though.
That's the same season, I think, as the 6-3 game that we were talking about before we started. I think it was 2009. It was a dark time.
I thought we were going to leave that one off camera.
Yeah, but like that was like a bright spot. Like it's like, well, we have this. We have this for this one season. But so.
Yeah. And then the popcorn happened.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I really probably should draft tight end here, right?
I'm going to be really mad if you don't.
Okay, I won't
based
then.
on me.
So I'm not going to. Because T.O. actually, as I was looking at, is one of the few wide receivers ahead of this guy in many, many statistical categories. But kind of a similar idea. Chris Carter. Chris Carter was amazing. And there were some years, those Vikings teams were super good, super fun to watch. And they had a couple moments and they just couldn't really put it together at the end. But yeah, Chris Carter was consistency, and that guy had hands, probably still does. That he can catch just about anything. So that wraps up round 5.
Yeah. That's our last round on air. At least on video, what we're gonna do is, if you want to be a part of the rest of this draft, you want to see picks 6 through 10, wherever it is you listen to podcasts, whether that's SoundCloud, whether that is Apple, we are going to throw this entire podcast up on their audio version. So from myself, Jason, Del, and Dave, who probably right now has the team to beat still, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.